Hello and welcome to our School at Home class in English Grade 10. We are in the third quarter of our set of lessons, and I hope everybody will delight in learning today with lesson number 8. Our topic is about composing an independent critique of a chosen selection. For a start, do the following exercise. You can pause this video if you will need more time. Press play again when you're finished with the activity and when you're ready to proceed with the lesson. Let's have the pretest. Identify the right answer to the given questions. Choose the letter of the correct answer. Write the answers on your notebook. Number 1. Which is a definition of a critique? Letter A. The systematic investigation and study of materials and sources to establish facts and to reach new conclusions. Letter B. A detailed analysis and assessment of something, especially a literary, philosophical, or political theory. Letter C. A short piece of writing that expresses information as well as the writer's opinion on a particular topic. Number 2. Which is the purpose of a critique? Letter A. To evaluate somebody's work in order to increase the reader's understanding of it. Letter B. To collect your ideas and observations on any number of things and put the happenings of each day into writing. Letter C. To present a coherent argument in response to a stimulus or question and to persuade the reader that your position is credible. Number 3. Which writing style does a critique belong? Letter A. Creative writing. B. Expository writing. Letter C. Persuasive writing. Number 4. Which statement is true in writing a critique? Letter A. It assesses the strengths and weaknesses of the piece of writing. Letter B. It explains a topic in a logical and straightforward manner. Letter C. It assists a reader in understanding a particular piece of writing. Number 5. Which could be the other term for critique writing? Letter A. Critical analysis. Letter B. Critical thinking. Letter C. Critical discussion. Here are the correct answers. Number 1 is B, number 2 is A, number 3 is A, number 4 is C, and number 5 is A. Writing will always be a part of your studies, especially that of essay writing. It is important that you know how to construct and compose sentences and paragraphs. You will not be able to reach college without being able to write an essay. And college work will be hard if you don't know how to write. Writing gives voice to our inner thoughts and allows us to share them. It equips us with communication and thinking skills, and this makes it an important skill that we have to learn. In school, you are asked to submit a written work, be it an essay, a literary piece, or a research, which are examples of academic writing that you have to accomplish as a requirement, and one that you have to do if you want to graduate. Writing academically will help you students to analyze, to convey understanding, and to think critically. What is critique writing? One academic writing that you must learn is writing a critique. A critique is a genre of academic writing that briefly summarizes and critically evaluates a work or concept. A simpler definition is a review of something. Critiques can be used to carefully analyze a variety of works such as creative works like novels, exhibits, film, images, and poetry. It can also be used for research, like monographs, journal articles, systematic reviews, and theories, or for media, like news reports and feature articles. The purpose for writing a critique is to evaluate somebody's work, may it be a book, an essay, a movie, or a painting. in order to increase the reader's understanding of it. A critical analysis is subjective writing because it expresses the writer's opinion or evaluation of a text. An example of a critique is a professor writing notes about a student's artwork. We learn to analyze from our study or reading and come out with what is important. Like an essay, a critique uses a formal academic writing style and has a clear structure that is an introduction, body, and conclusion. However, the body of a critique includes a summary of the work and a detailed evaluation. Furthermore, the purpose of an evaluation is to gauge the usefulness or impact of a work in a particular field. An understanding of the work's purpose, intended audience, development of argument, structure of evidence or creative style, and a recognition of the strengths and weaknesses of the work. Remember that in writing a critique, it is important to have a thorough understanding of the work that will be critiqued by studying the work under discussion, making notes on the key parts, and developing an understanding of the main argument or purpose being expressed in the work. You also have to consider how the work relates to a broader issue or context. Here are the parts of a critique: introduction, summary, critical evaluation, and conclusion. The introduction is typically short. It is less than 10% of the word length. In writing the introduction, name the work being reviewed as well as the date it was created and the name of the author or creator. Describe the main argument or purpose of the work. Explain the context in which the work was created. This could include the social or political context, the place of the work in a creative or academic tradition, or the relationship between the work and the creator's life experience. Have a concluding sentence that signposts what your evaluation of the work will be. For instance, it may indicate whether it is a positive, negative, or mixed evaluation. Briefly summarize the main points and objectively describe how the creator portrays these by using techniques, styles, media, characters, or symbols. This summary should not be the focus of the critique and is usually shorter than the critical evaluation. This section should give a systematic and detailed assessment of the different elements of the work, evaluating how well the creator was able to achieve the purpose through this. For example, you would assess the plot structure, characterization, and setting of a novel. An assessment of a painting would look at composition, brush strokes, color, and light. A critique of a research project would look at subject selection, design of the experiment, analysis of data, and conclusions. A critical evaluation does not simply highlight negative impressions. It should deconstruct the work and identify both strengths and weaknesses. It should examine the work and evaluate its success in light of its purpose. This evaluation is written in formal academic style and logically presented. Group and order your ideas into paragraphs. Start with the broad impressions first and then move into the details of the technical elements. For shorter critiques, you may discuss the strengths of the work and then the weaknesses. In longer critiques, you may wish to discuss the positive and negative of each key critical question in individual paragraphs. To support the evaluation, provide evidence from the work itself, such as a quote or example, and you should also cite evidence from related sources. Explain how this evidence supports your evaluation of the work. The conclusion is usually a very brief paragraph which includes a statement indicating the overall evaluation of the work, a summary of the key reasons identified during the critical evaluation and why this evaluation was formed. In some circumstances, recommendations for improvement on the work may be appropriate. To summarize, writing a critique of a selection or art is to describe, give the reader a sense of the writer's overall purpose and intent, analyze, examine how the structure and language of the text or art convey its meaning, interpret, state the significance or importance of each part of the text or art, and assess, make a judgment of the work's worth or value. Let us have some exercises for further understanding. Let's have activity 1. Identify what is being described by choosing the right word from the word pool. Here are your choices: introduction, summary, critical evaluation, conclusion. Number 1. Part of a critique that gives the important details of a work. Number 2. Part of a critique that points out the main objective of a work. Number 3. Part of a critique that summarizes the main points of the evaluation of a work. Number 4. Part of a critique that gives a detailed analysis of the elements of a work. And number 5. Part of a critique that discusses the strengths and weaknesses of a work. Here are the correct answers. Number 1 is introduction, number 2 is conclusion, number 3 is summary, number 4 is evaluation, and number 5 is evaluation. Let's have activity 2. Identify the following paragraphs from a critique by Greg Downey titled Langdon Winner, Who Will We Be in Cyberspace? 1996. As to parts: introduction, summary, evaluation or body, and conclusion. One part will be used twice. Number 1. In particular, Winner is worried that flashy consumer gadgets marketed to us to fill our needs as individuals mask profound social or collective consequences. This is a pattern he sees throughout the early 20th century, where the modern world was to be a place in which personal desires would be fulfilled through consumption of industrially produced commodities, but missing from the picture was any attention to collective goods and collective problems. Number 2. I think Winner's argument is a persuasive one, and I like the way he uses a broad historical set of examples from the early 20th century to make his point about looming 21st century technological change. I wish he would say more about why market forces are not enough by themselves, to indicate what kinds of technologies would be best for us to choose as a society of consumers. Number 3. In this article from 1996, before Google, before YouTube, before Facebook, philosopher of technology Langdon Winner argues that in terms of online information systems, to invent a new technology requires that society also invents the kinds of people who will use it. Number 4. The effects that concern Winner the most seem to be political ones. Winner introduces the term myth information to point out the danger of holding the simplistic utopian view that the spread of information machines is somehow inherently democratic and that no one needs to lift a finger to achieve democratization and create a good society. Number 5. In the end, Winner wants us to avoid sleepwalking through periods of technological change, what he calls technological somnambulism, and instead make active choices about what technologies we use and how we use them. This is a special responsibility for those in the information industries working as creative or engineers to build these new systems and insert them into workplaces, schools, and homes. Persons whose professional work gives them insight into the choices that matter must be diligent in expressing their knowledge and judgments to a broad public. Here are the correct answers. Number 1 is summary, number 2 is conclusion, number 3 is introduction, number 4 is evaluation, and number 5 is evaluation. Compose a review of the 2012 movie Dark Knight Rises by writing the numbers 1 to 6 in your notebook. Letter A. This film served as great entertainment with its colorful cast and numerous plot twists. Nolan used actors appeared in previous Batman films or in his blockbuster hit Inception, and all of them shown in their respective roles. Tom Hardy was almost unrecognizable in his Bane costume, while Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Marion Cotillard were both excellent and obviously comfortable with Nolan's directing style and the film's dramatic tone. When crisis threatens Gotham City, Bruce Wayne jumps back into the Batmobile to fight crime. Batman is joined on his quest by an eager orphan cop, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, a seductive cat burglar, Anne Hathaway, and a violent masked villain, Tom Hardy. Letter C. Despite the film's minor shortcomings, The Dark Knight Rises is exciting, creative, and dark, and well worth a few hours of your time. Letter D. Christopher Nolan brings yet another adrenaline-filled, comic-inspired movie to the big screen with The Dark Knight Rises. We see all sorts of familiar faces this time around, but the audience is introduced to a few new characters as well. Letter E. True to Nolan's style, at 164 minutes, this film is fairly long. There were a few times when the movie felt a bit drawn out, but the gorgeous action scenes and impressive dialogue really held the audience's attention and kept them on the edge of their seats. However, the timeline was a bit unclear at times. For a number of scenes, it was hard to tell whether it had been days or months or years that had passed since the last given time a given character had been on screen. Letter F. The one actor that gave this reviewer pause was Anne Hathaway as Selina Kyle. She has historically been typecast as the girl next door, so it was a shock to watch her steal and fight her way through the city of Gotham. After a few scenes, however, we were convinced that the casting decisions was a good one, as Hathaway portrayed the darker Catwoman role brilliantly. Here are the correct answers. Letter A should be number 3, letter B is number 2, letter C is number 6, letter D is 1, letter E is number 5, and letter F is 4. Let's wrap up what we have discussed today. Let us see how well you remember your lesson by enumerating on your notebook the information to include and the things to consider in writing a critique. For the valuing, let's answer this activity. On your notebook, write a paragraph explaining the importance of writing an honest critique of a piece of writing or a work of art. It's now time to check what you have learned. Answer the following questions in our post-test. Decide whether the statement is true or false. Put a check or an X mark on the space provided before the number. Number 1. Writing a critique is to criticize a piece of literature or art. Number 2. Reading a critique about an art or literature is not enlightening. Number 3. Writing a critique is to understand thoroughly a work of art or a piece of literature. Number 4. Assessing the strengths and weaknesses of the thing to be critiqued is needed for a sound judgment of the piece of writing or art. Number 5. Critiquing is a careful judgment of evaluating in a detailed and analytical way a piece of literature or a work of art. Here are the correct answers. Number 1 is X, number 2 is X, number 3 is check, number 4 is check, and number 5 is check. And that ends our lesson today. I hope you learned how to write a critique. Goodbye!